Good evening. Our top story tonight, the Dallas Cowboys dominate on Thursday Night Football. And I know it wasn't a true dominant performance. I know it wasn't a blowout. I know they had to come from behind. But what I saw from the Dallas Cowboys gives me hope, gives me confidence that we are going to see the Dallas Cowboys heading to the Super Bowl. So we've got that. We've got injury updates around the NFL and more on Player Profiler today. And so, with the Dallas Cowboys victory over the Seattle Seahawks, they are now officially the number one offense in terms of points per game. And this is kind of ironic, kind of funny, because Mike McCarthy, or at least I can't remember if this was an official statement or if this was just behind the scenes, but either way, we all know that Mike McCarthy didn't love the lighting up the scoreboard of Kellen Moore. Thought that was his only goal. And the goal wasn't to win games, wasn't to play complimentary football, wasn't to give the defense breaks. It was just scoring as many points as possible, which sounds kind of funny at face value, but clearly Mike McCarthy is okay with scoring a bunch of points. The Dallas Cowboys scoring a bunch of points all season long. This time they have to score points to make up for the defense, and Dak Prescott has no problem with that. Almost 300 yards. He has 3 touchdowns. One of them goes to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, 12 receptions on 17 targets, goes for 116 yards through the air, adds 30 yards rushing. So that is 32.6 points in PPR, over 140 yards on the day for CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks chips in for 4 grabs, catches all 4 of his targets, 45 and a TD. Jake Ferguson catches the other touchdown, 77 yards on 6 grabs for him. That's 19.7 PPR points from your tight end. This was a beautiful, beautiful game. It lived up to all of the expectations, all of the hopes and dreams we could want for fantasy football, unless you played Michael Gallup, who went 0 for 1. But how many people are actually starting Michael Gallup? It's got to be the deepest of deep leagues that you're actually starting Michael Gallup, even with the Buymageddon. And it wasn't just Dak Prescott through the air. Okay, it was mostly Dak Prescott through the air, 68 yards from Tony Pollard on the ground, 3.4 yards per carry, scores a touchdown, 15 yards receiving on 3 grabs from Tony Pollard as well. So a fine day from Tony Pollard, thanks to the touchdown, 16.3 PPR points because he gets the 3 receptions as well. And so really, this just is a statement win for Dak Prescott because Tony Pollard wasn't helping him on the ground, wasn't efficient there at all. The defense wasn't doing them any favors. The Seahawks were able to move the ball at will for most of the game. There was one favor late in the game that we'll talk about. And the O-line didn't even play well for Dak Prescott. Left tackle Tyron Smith played well. Other than that, Zach Martin at right guard played well. But right tackle Terrence Steele allowed 5 pressures. We got 4 pressures, from Tyler Smith, the left guard, and 3 pressures from center Tyler Biadasz. And Dak Prescott still over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott is playing the best football of his career. If this continues, he's MVP. Because that would mean he beats the Philadelphia Eagles next week. And if Dak Prescott puts up this kind of performance against the Philadelphia Eagles, he's going to win MVP. And this team can help Dak out. Dak Prescott, really. He and CeeDee Lamb did it all. Brandon Cooks, Jake Ferguson, they chip in pretty nicely on offense as well. But Tony Pollard didn't do a whole lot to help them. Good on the stat sheet, but not really helping the offense. Offensive line, not helping the offense. And the defense, just at will. Deron Bland gives up 2 touchdowns. One of them a 72-yarder, 169 yards allowed by Deron Bland. Only 1 sack, and it comes from the nose tackle, Jonathan Hankins. You look at that and you say, Dallas Cowboys defense, what happened? Well, we did actually have a pretty good day from the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. It actually was pretty good, even with 1 sack. That is why sacks are misleading. Micah Parsons, 7 pressures. Dante Fowler, 4 pressures, 3 apiece from Dorrance Armstrong and DeMarcus Lawrence. So basically 7 pressures from Micah Parsons on one side. And then the other side of the defensive line, where they're rotating guys throughout the line and playing. Some of them times they're kicking inside as well. But either way, 7 pressures from one end, and then a combined 6 plus 4, that's 10. 10 pressures from the other end. The Dallas Cowboys defense was playing well. Geno Smith just was able to get the ball out faster than he ever has. Usually Geno Smith averaging 2.8 yard or seconds per throw. This time it was dropped by over 0.3 seconds. Geno Smith down to 2.5 seconds per throw. It was just the Seahawks having a really, really good game. Geno Smith was letting go. His offensive line, he was under pressure. And DaRon Bland just had a bad couple quarters, but DaRon Bland makes up for it. That is why DaRon Bland very well might be the defensive player of the year. Historic 5 interceptions. There is no defender more valuable than DaRon Bland right now, even after that bad game. And that bad game comes mostly at the expense of DK Metcalf. 3 touchdowns from DK Metcalf. What a game. And that's obviously the big story. 3 touchdowns for DK Metcalf. Absolutely huge. But an actually bigger story in the wide receiver room for the Seattle Seahawks is wide receiver number 2. Because actually, if you look at targets, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he's not even the wide receiver 2. He's the wide receiver 1. 11 targets for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. 8 for DK Metcalf. Now he goes for 134 yards, 3 touchdowns, yada, yada. JSN catches 7 of his 11 targets. So he actually leads the team in receptions, and he has more yards than Tyler Lockett. 11 targets for JSN compared to 8 for Tyler Lockett, which is pretty good still. 62 yards for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, 47 for Tyler Lockett. So, I don't know. Is Jaxon Smith-Njigba finally the wide receiver 2? I don't know if it's official yet. There's still going to be some Tyler Lockett weeks in there, but the Jaxon Smith-Njigba breakout is here, and it's coming. And he's going to have an epic performance within the next 2 weeks, so be prepared for that. Meanwhile, without Kenneth Walker, we see a pretty solid game from Zach Charbonnet. 60 yards on the ground, 19 carries, scores a touchdown, 1 reception for 39 yards, so 99 yards and a TD on the day. Leaves the game early, bangs his knee on the turf, as Pete Carroll calls it. Says it's a knee bruise, not a knee injury, which would mean it's not an injury to the ligaments in the knee. It's just a bruise. And bruises can cause you to miss a game. A bone bruise has caused Travis Kelce to miss a game. So we've seen it, but not too worried about Zach Charbonnet. Great game for him. Great game all around. But this Dallas Cowboys team, when the offensive line actually protects Dak Prescott, because they can. This is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. When this defense actually performs, because it can. Because we saw the pressure. Geno Smith was able to just get it out quick enough, and DaRon Bland had a bad game. Stephon Gilmore still on the opposite side of DaRon Bland. So the Dallas Cowboys. I know this isn't the game where you want to say, hey, they're going to the Super Bowl after getting lit up on defense by the Seahawks. But when the Cowboys beat the Eagles next week, you're going to start believing me that the Dallas Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. Anyways, we've got more news and notes around the NFL, but first, we've got a word from the Podfather.
Hey, so many ask me, what's wrong with sportsbooks? Why so many of them fail? The answer is simple. They don't innovate. They're just casino sportsbooks on a phone. That's all they've been. There are a few that are doing a good job. We partner with them. Most of them, not so much. Until Bet Openly came along. Bet Openly said, hey, we're going to innovate. We're going to do something groundbreaking. We're going to have peer-to-peer betting in all states, and you pay 1%. When you win, you pay just 1% on your winnings. You heard that right. It's 1%. With code Underworld, you qualify for just that 1% transaction fee on Bet Openly. It gives you ultimate flexibility to set your own lines and browse lines that others have set. Think about it. That's what betting should be, and now that is the reality. BetOpenly.com. The code is Underworld. Check it out. Hey, I know you want to win a fantasy championship. Good news. We actually have consultants that will run your team for you and get you to the finish line. Patrick Murphy and his team guarantee you a playoff spot. Here's one happy customer.
I've been playing fantasy football for about 10 years now in the same league, and I'm always mediocre. I was never able to kind of break through that championship realm. And I honestly just didn't have the time or the will or the desire to put in the work that it took necessary to win. Until I met Pat Murphy. He was able to give me a draft strategy, help me with free agency, make some trades and deals for me at the deadline that were able to put me over the top. And last year I actually won my league for the first time. Big shout out to Pat. If you don't have it yet, please sign up for his subscription service because it's the best.
So go to playerprofiler.com/advice and we'll take it from there.
So that was last night, but what about the weekend to come? Well, we've got some bad news for Monday Night Football. Jaguars versus the Bengals. Travis Ettiene looking like his status a little bit up in the air. He didn't practice yesterday with an injury to his chest, with an injury to his ribs. But Travis Ettiene returns today. He's limited, so we're not out of the woods just yet. But I truly, truly believe that Travis Ettiene is going to play. To go from did not practice to limited, we'll find out for sure tomorrow. But I think Travis Ettiene is going to play. He might be a little bit hampered. He might be a little bit limited. We might see a little bit more D'Ernest Johnson, because D'Ernest Johnson is the number 2 running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We only saw 2 snaps from Tank Bigsby last week. Hasn't run a route in a couple weeks at this point. Tank Bigsby is the running back 3. D'Ernest Johnson might see a 40% snap share from D'Ernest Johnson, but Travis Ettiene looks like he's still going to play. I could be proven wrong tomorrow, but for now, looks like he is good. Looks like Keenan Allen is going to play. He doesn't practice on Wednesday, doesn't practice on Thursday, returns, gets a limited session in on Friday. And you know, Keenan Allen is going to do everything he can to play. And if Keenan Allen is playing, you are playing him. So that is good news for Keenan Allen, despite the fact that it was a little bit scary earlier in the week. We do know that the Cleveland Browns will be without their starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson obviously was their starting quarterback. He is out for the year. Now Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was QB2, then he goes to QB3. PJ Walker's QB2 for a period of time. Then DTR beats him back out. He's the starter for a week. Gets a win last week for the Browns. Now he is out with a concussion. And instead of going to PJ Walker, Joe Flacco has leapfrogged and is now QB1 on the week. He's going to be the backup to DTR when DTR is healthy. But Joe Flacco, starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, called Poetry in Motion earlier this week by Amari Cooper. The Browns are loving Joe Flacco, loving having their former rival with the Baltimore Ravens in the room. And just so you know, if you are worried about David Njoku at tight end, and I can't speak for the rest of the wide receivers, but for David Njoku at the very least, last year, Joe Flacco made 3 starts for the New York Jets early in the season, and we saw 18 receptions for Tyler Conklin. Joe Flacco knows how to target the tight end position. Had Mark Andrews for a period of time. They also drafted Hayden Hurst, hoping that he would be the next big thing. But even before that, anyone remember Dennis Pitta, Ed Dixon? They both had their successful seasons with the Baltimore Ravens because Joe Flacco loves the tight end. Owen Daniels had a fantasy relevant season. Todd Heap was there when Flacco first got drafted. Joe Flacco loves his tight end. So we'll see. He's going to have Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was limited on Thursday and Friday, but he is expected to play this week. Myles Garrett officially questionable with the shoulder injury. They're hoping that he will play. Will be without cornerback Denzel Ward, though. So that's one hit to the defense. Hopefully not 2. Hopefully Myles Garrett does play. Myles Garrett, arguably the defensive player of the year. I think it's Deron Bland still, even after giving up all those yards and a touchdown last night. But I still give it to Deron Bland. Anyways, other injury updates around the NFL. Aaron Rodgers did not practice on Thursday, but it's all good. He returns on Friday, gets another limited session in. The Jets are clearly going to be somewhat responsible when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Even if Aaron Rodgers himself might not be fully responsible with his rehab, with his recovery, might be pushing a little bit too far. The Jets, at the very least, are going to be sensible about it. So he gets a limited session in on Wednesday. They give him Thursday off, say, hey, take a break. Practices on Friday. Now, obviously, he's not going to practice on Saturday because they don't have a practice. They might have a walkthrough or something like that, but Aaron Rodgers not going to be doing that because he's not going to be playing. And so he's got some time to rest up, recover over the weekend, continue to attack his rehab. But Aaron Rodgers isn't playing this year. Jets do expect to have Breece Hall back from his hamstring injury. He is officially questionable, limited throughout the week. Do expect him to play. Dalvin Cook also expected to play with a shoulder injury. As for their rivals in the AFC East, Bailey Zappi is expected to be QB1 for the New England Patriots. He is going to start week 13. His backup is Malik Cunningham. Mac Jones, officially benched, officially QB3. Maybe, just maybe, he ends up as QB4 because Will Grier was re-signed to the practice squad. He could be elevated, and he could leapfrog Mac Jones as well. So, is Mac Jones' time with the New England Patriots over? Probably. But we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe once they get rid of Bill Belichick, maybe they'll bring in a coach to rebuild him. But given how bad the Patriots are, they're probably drafting Drake May. We also will have no Demario Douglas for the New England Patriots. Bailey Zappi will not be throwing to Douglas, and they will not be throwing to Kayshon Boutte. Demario Douglas out with a concussion. Kayshon Boutte, shoulder and illness, has him out this week. New England Patriots doing everything they can to bottom out. And wouldn't it just be so Belichick to not win another game until week 18 when the season and the draft pick is on the line and Bill Belichick goes out and wins, gets that third win, costs the team Drake May or whatever other quarterback. Maybe they still draft Jayden Daniels. I don't know, but either way, wouldn't it just be so Belichick to cost them that draft pick, that future quarterback? Good news around the NFL on the injury front. Not all bad news. Kenny Pickett practicing in full. Kenny Pickett is expected to play. Minkah Fitzpatrick also expected to make his return for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will be the first time he has played since week 8. Injured his hamstring injury, but looks like he is back. Baker Mayfield, good to go. He has an ankle injury. Practice in full. No issue. Chris Godwin looks like he's going to be good to go as well. Popped up on the injury report with a neck injury. Think he's going to be okay. Think he is going to play, so not particularly worried at this point. Not worried about Tank Dell. Tank Dell gets another limited practice in on Friday. Doesn't practice Wednesday. Limited Thursday. Limited Friday. Looks like Tank Dell is going to be active. He is officially questionable. Do expect him to play. And Tank Dell is at the point where if he's playing, you're playing Tank Dell. You have to, given the connection he has with CJ Stroud. And they're also going to be without Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz out with a hamstring injury. They're expecting Brevin Jordan to step in for his role at tight end, but Brevin Jordan not going to be a big part of this offense. That just means more targets potentially for Tank Dell. And even more because Noah Brown is limited with a knee injury on Wednesday and Thursday and then doesn't practice today, officially questionable, but the downgrade from limited to out, not good for Noah Brown. So that's just even more targets for Nico Collins, more targets for Tank Dell. Got to start Tank Dell. And at this point, I think you got to start Nico Collins as well. Other good news around the NFL, the Dolphins. Sketchy looking injury report with the Dolphins pretty much every week. Raheem Mostert every week, doesn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday, full on Friday, and he's removed from the injury report. So just another example of that happening. Tyreek Hill, same thing this week, doesn't practice with an ankle injury on Wednesday, limited Thursday, full on Friday. He is good to go. He is in full, but the Dolphins are hurting. Tua Tagovailoa hurting. We all saw that cut that he had on his arm, the arm laceration. He practices in full all week, but the Dolphins have to list him on the injury report because of how severe that cut is. But Tua's going to be playing. Tyreek Hill going to be playing. Raheem Mostert going to be playing. An amazing stat on Raheem Mostert. He's the RB2 right now, right? Well, the gap between Christian McCaffrey at RB1 and Raheem Mostert at RB2, that's larger than the gap between Raheem Mostert and Jaylen Warren, the RB25. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. We also have Devon Achane. Devon Achane is expected to play this week. He was limited in practice throughout the week. Has the knee injury. Expects him to be good to go. But we're still starting Raheem Mostert. T. Higgins is making his way back. He's been limited throughout the week. We're hoping that T. Higgins makes his return for the Bengals on Monday Night Football, but does it matter? Are you really starting T. Higgins with Jake Browning? I don't know. I really, really don't know at this point with the hamstring. And Jake Browning, I don't know. I really don't know on T. Higgins. I'm sure there's situations where I'm playing him, where you have to play him, but don't love it. Chris Olave looks like he is going to play. He suffered a concussion on Sunday, limited in practice on Wednesday. So he was already ahead of schedule, limited on Thursday, full practice on Friday. So it looks like Chris Olave probably going to be active. He still could be inactive, but rare case where we see a player actually get a full practice in on Friday after suffering a concussion. That hasn't happened too often in the NFL this season. Saints will be without Rashid Shaheed, though. He's going to be inactive with a thigh injury. Up against the Detroit Lions, the New Orleans Saints will be, and the Lions will have David Montgomery. He's removed from the injury report. He is limited on Wednesday with a foot injury, full on Thursday, full on Friday. David Montgomery, good to go. So expect a full split once again between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Basically, the new Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. It's just going to be a 50-50 split right down the middle, and both are going to produce. Lions will be without Hendon Hooker this week. He was activated from the injured reserve earlier this week. Gets a full practice in on Thursday and Friday, but Hendon Hooker not going to make his season debut just yet. Not going to be activated from the injured reserve just yet. Probably another 2 weeks before he's activated and then becomes QB3. Packers are going to have A.J. Dillon this week. He practices Thursday and Friday, so it looks like he's going to be good to go. Aaron Jones is going to be out, though. Aaron Jones missing another game with that knee injury. He's probably going to miss next week as well. And then that fourth game, that's going to be the question. Aaron Jones, severe knee injury. Didn't send him to IR, but flirted with it. So I don't expect Aaron Jones back next week either. Jayden Reed, officially questionable. He didn't practice on Thursday with a chest injury. He returns today. So hopefully we see Jayden Reed out there for the Green Bay Packers. Wide receiver 1 in terms of targets for Green Bay Packers, at least last week and probably going forward. Love Jayden Reed, so I hope he is healthy. Broncos get Jerry Jeudy healthy. He is off the injury report. So is Marvin Mims. And for the Eagles, everyone, pretty much everyone at the very least, is off the injury report. DeAndre Swift, off the injury report. He had an ankle injury. A.J. Brown, off the injury report. He had a thigh injury. Devontae Smith, off the injury report. He had a knee injury. Lane Johnson, the right tackle, off the injury report. He has a groin injury. Julio Jones, off the injury report. He has a knee injury. And Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle that they drafted last year, off the injury report with a hamstring injury. They are all good to go, all gearing up to face the San Francisco 49ers. This is going to be a fun game. No Dallas Goedert, though. Dallas Goedert does return to practice today. He's doubtful. Doubtful means he's out. But the fact that Dallas Goedert returned to practice today, great news for next week's contest between the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. That is going to be game of the week, maybe game of the season. And we've got some pretty good games left this season. A lot of good games in week 15. And we got an update on week 15. So many of these games didn't have a time set. And now we know. On Thursday Night Football, we're going to get the Raiders at the Chargers, which somewhat interesting, even though both these teams probably not making playoffs at this point. It could be a fun game with Justin Herbert at least, and the Raiders looking more fun lately. I don't know. And then on Saturday, we get 3 games. We get Vikings at the Bengals at 1 o'clock. Weird game to have on an island, especially is Josh Dobbs going to be QB1 versus Jake Browning? Interesting. Then we get Steelers Colts at 4:30, which is another interesting game. Could be a lot of fun, could be terrible. You never know with the Steelers and you never know with the Colts. So we'll see how that one shakes out. But then Saturday night, 8:15, we get Broncos at the Lions. Prime time again for the Detroit Lions. The networks are quite literally begging Roger Goodell for more Detroit Lions. Lions are America's team at this point. We love our Detroit Lions. So we're going to get to see them on Saturday night. Then on Sunday, 1 o'clock, not good. The 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, week 15, not good at all. Bucks at Packers. might be the best game. Then at 4:25, we have Cowboys at Bills. That's going to be a banger. Sunday Night Football, we get Ravens at Jaguars. That could be a great game if the Jaguars show up. The Ravens, on the other hand, they can blow out teams or they can play close randomly. So could be a lot of fun. Then Monday Night Football, Eagles at Seahawks. And this is funny because the original contest was the Chiefs at the Patriots. And how bad do the Patriots have to be to get Patrick Mahomes flexed out of primetime and sent to the 1 o'clock slate? That's how bad the Patriots have been this year. And in week 15, will the Kansas City Chiefs have a new addition on offense? Because Zach Ertz has cleared waivers. Zach Ertz, it would have cost about $3 million this year, $11 million next year to claim Zach Ertz. So he clears waivers. No team wants to pick him up. But the Chiefs are already linked to Zach Ertz. So are the Buffalo Bills. So are the Baltimore Ravens. Bills lost Dawson Knox earlier this season. He's expected to come back. Ravens lost Mark Andrews. He might come back late in the playoffs, but they could use some help at tight end. Or could Zach Ertz go back to the Philadelphia Eagles, who have an injury at tight end of their own? We know Dallas Goedert expected to come back next week, but could they reunite that 1-2 punch for the Philadelphia Eagles? Speaking of the Arizona Cardinals, who did release Zach Ertz, Trey McBride is expected to play this week. Didn't practice Wednesday, got a limited session in on Thursday and Friday, so he's expected to be good to go. And at this point, you're starting Trey McBride if you have him. Don't know if you're starting Hollywood Brown or not yet. He didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. He's got a heel injury, but he's questionable, not doubtful. So Hollywood Brown still very well could play. Michael Wilson, though, he's not going to play this week. He is out with a shoulder injury, so we're not going to see him. Final news and notes around the NFL comes from our coaches. Our coaches that are already looking for a new job, or our coaches that could be looking for a new job. So the Buffalo Bills have said Sean McDermott, 0% chance that he's fired. We'll see if they hold true to that, if they miss the playoffs. But for now, Sean McDermott seems to be safe. The Chicago Bears, not so safe for Matt Eberflus. The Chicago Bears are already having conversations inside the team about bringing in Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, with all of the scandal going on there, already has flirted with the NFL, returning several times. So is this finally going to be it? Jim Harbaugh returns for his former team, the Chicago Bears? Well, the Bears are having those conversations. The Panthers want Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions offense coordinator, but Ben Johnson already turned them down last year, said, no, I don't even want to do a second interview with you, David Tepper. So will the money talk, or will Ben Johnson turn it down once again? We also know the Raiders are looking for a new head coach, looking for a new general manager, but when you hear the reports, I don't know if it's really the general manager's fault. I don't know if Dave Ziegler should have been fired alongside Josh McDaniels, because it sounds like it was an untenable relationship between the two. They both came over from the Patriots, but it just ended up being Josh McDaniels getting his way all the time. And so when it comes to the NFL draft, some interesting developments. It sounds as though Dave Ziegler knew what was up. Dave Ziegler was ready to trade up to 1 to 2, get the quarterback of the future, go out and get CJ Stroud. Could you imagine CJ Stroud, the way he's playing right now for the Houston Texans in the silver and black? That would be the most badass thing we've seen in a long time. And that's what Dave Ziegler wanted. General manager of the Raiders, former general manager of the Raiders, wanted CJ Stroud, wanted to trade up, had a framework in place to start making it happen. And that's when Dave Ziegler found out Josh McDaniels didn't want CJ Stroud. No, if they were going to be trading up, they were going to be drafting Bryce Young. And so Ziegler, the GM, says, hey, I want Stroud. All our scouts want Stroud. Everyone in the building wants Stroud, but Josh McDaniels loves himself some Bryce Young. And Josh McDaniels is going to veto us. So you know what? We're just not going to make the trade. And now the Raiders are stuck with Jimmy G and Aiden O'Connell looking ahead to next year.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.